Hey guys, welcome to TFL Car Chat. It's me and...
It's Tommy, and we've got a great episode for you today because there are some massively obvious big sellers that these car companies are just totally missing out on that we think could kind of blow up the market. So we're going to talk about some of those, some of our predictions about what might happen with some of the car companies. But first, before we get to all of that, you have just been on something pretty cool.
Yeah, I just came back from Pebble Beach, the Concours d'Elegance. And, whoa, I feel poor, Tommy. I feel so poor. I have never seen so much money located in one little tiny area. You know, when you see Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Huayras street parked, just, you know, on the side of the street, you know you're in for some serious heavy hitters.
So was it like every car you would pass, were they all like hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, or were there some like normal cars mixed in there as well?
There's this hotel there called Spanish Inn at Spanish Bay.
Okay.
And you know how they park cars in the front in the valet, and usually you'll get like some, you know, some Mercedes, maybe some Cadillacs. This was all like the cheapest car I saw, except for one, I'll tell you in a second. The cheapest car I saw was the Porsche GT3 RS, and then it went up from there.
Wow.
So we're looking, you know, you're looking at the coolest car there. I'll tell you what was there. Obviously, there were all kinds of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, even the newest one, the Revuelto was there. And then you're starting to get into these like crazy ass one-off supercars like, you know, Huayras and Aston Martin Valhallas, you know, stuff like that. And then the craziest car was, it was a, what are those cars called? A concept car that they built the Batmobile on. So I forget what the original Batmobile was built on, but it was built on this concept car. Huh. And they had, because I look at it, I'm like, that's the Batmobile.
Yeah.
And then I was there with Motorman. He's like, no, that's a car that they built the Batmobile on.
Wow.
And then if there was a Lonely Sonata.
But these were all like cars that were just on the street.
These were just like parked in front of the hotel.
That's
they
crazy.
were just like valeted, and then one Sonata. I mean, like, I don't know what the Sonata was doing there, but I had an embarrassing moment, Tommy. So I was at the Quail, and the Quail is, I think, $1,500 to get in. It's like, imagine a car show that's outside.
Oh my gosh.
But all the food is free, all the drinks are free. And I think they were scalping tickets to it for like $4,000. It's crazy, right? So if you want to buy, you know, Koenigsegg, you can go buy one from Mr. Koenigsegg himself. They're there. I was there with the chief designer for Lamborghini. They built this special Revuelto, which was kind of bumblebee color, and they're only building 30 of them.
Wow.
And they sold one off for charity, and it sold for $25 million. RJ was there from Rivian. They built a special. The theme of this whole week was one of one. Everybody wants one of one. In other words, if you're super rich, you got to have something that no one else can have, and that really was the thing. So Cadillac had a stand set up with the concept car and the, is it Vistique or Vistique?
Yep, I think you got it.
You know, the big electric car.
Vistique,
yeah. But nobody was there.
Okay.
That was like the ghetto of. That was only 300,000, right? Shmi didn't even pay attention to it. He was running around profiling all these.
Oh, you're thinking of the Celestiq.
The Celestiq, yeah. Sorry, not the Vistique, the Celestiq. So Shmi was running around profiling all these. There were 15 F50s.
Wow.
I don't know how many F40s. Now I'm talking Ferraris, right? They didn't build that many. But there were probably another 10 of those. Just crazy stuff. Anyway, it was kind of sunny and there was shade there, and I really had to use a bathroom. And even though there were restaurants everywhere, I didn't know where the bathroom was. So there's this like shorter gentleman there talking to somebody else, and it was across from the Pagani stand, and it was in the shade. And they were talking, and I'm like, these guys look official. Let me ask them where the bathroom is. So I walked up to him, and I was like, hey guys, do you know where the bathroom is? And the shorter gentleman with kind of the frosted hair looks at me. He goes, I don't know. And the other guy was like, no clue. And then I realized after he said that it was probably Horatio Pagani that I asked. I think he was hiding away from the stand because he's kind of a big star. And he went to the Cadillac stand because there was no one there to have a private meeting. And I just asked him where the bathroom was.
What's funny about that is, so Pagani is quite known for being like a big figure in the car community, but usually when people try to talk to him, he doesn't speak English. Like, that's his big thing.
No, he knew how to say no. I don't know.
Yeah, but from what I've heard, he definitely does know how to speak English. He just doesn't want to talk to people. But congrats, you talked to Horatio.
I did talk to Horatio, and it wasn't about buying a Huayra. So it was crazy, Tommy, just crazy. But let's skip that for now because we're past the Quail and the Pebble Beach. Oh, I'll give you a couple other things. Ask me what was my favorite car there.
What was your favorite car?
So at Pebble Beach, of course, very different show. So like the Quail is more or less new money. So it's all these tech bros, right? It's all the supercars, all the hypercars. And then you go, of course, to Pebble Beach where it's old money and old cars, like historic cars. They do have what they call the concept lawn, which is kind of in front of the lodge, i.e. the clubhouse, the golf course. And they had a whole bunch of cool cars set up there, including some of the ones that were unveiled at Pebble Beach. So like, for instance, Lucid showed up with a new version of the Gravity called the Gravity X, which is their off-roader. Of course, there has to be an off-road Gravity, right? Of course there does, competing with the R1 S, three-row if you want it to be. But the coolest car there, I think, was the Aston Martin Valhalla, which is they're only building 999 of them. It's kind of a plug-in hybrid, competes directly with the Rev Welto. And I like the Rev Welto, but they're probably going to build a lot more Rev Weltos, but they're only doing 1,000 of these Valhallas, and it is quite a striking car. It's got, of course, the scissor doors that open up. And the most interesting thing, if you can show the back of it, Cole, it's got active arrows. So there's spoilers that deploy in the front, and then there's spoilers that deploy in the back. So do you see the exhaust coming out the top there?
I do. Yeah, it's very cool.
All right. What do you think will happen when that air brake lifts and you've got that big old twin turbo V8? I think combined it puts like 1,000 horsepower, putting out all that heat into that wing. What do you think is going to happen to the wing? Carbon fiber wing.
I'm probably okay. I mean,
it's going to melt. I know that because they told me.
Really?
Yeah. So in this picture you can't see it, but there's a second set of exhaust under the license plate bracket.
Wow.
And so when the active arrow comes up, the exhaust gets routed not through the top, but through the bottom, so you don't melt the active arrow wing.
Why don't they just use the bottom exhaust all the time?
Because the top one looks cool.
Oh, man.
I think you couldn't use all four if you wanted to, but they showed me the other second set of exhaust. Which
I see them, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you saw some really, really expensive cars that very few people will be able to afford.
Yeah, maybe for this audience, the most interesting one, and we know this because we owned one of these. As you know, when the Bronco first came out, I believe it was 66, am I right? 66? It was a 64 or 66.
66?
There were three versions of it. So the one everybody knows is the station wagon, that's what they called it. We had the half cab, which is, of course, the pickup. And then the one that's the rarest, they only built them for 2 years, is the Roadster. And Ford unveiled a Roadster concept. So the Roadster, unlike a regular Bronco, has no doors and has no roof. They're not removable, it just doesn't have any. It's the most open air, the most kind of beach buggy of the lot. And what they wanted to do is pay homage to the original Roadster.
Yeah.
And they had one out there on the concept lawn. It was kind of white. It was very, very beachy. And it was cool. I mean, like I said, no doors, no roof. I don't think they're going to build it. I wish they would, but I just don't think. You can probably find it, Cole, to show them.
Yeah, so I think that this is an interesting concept. So, like, you mentioned that, back in the day, and they were all, I think it was U13, 14, and 15 were the codes.
Yep, very good.
But you had, like, the traditional wagon body style, which everybody knows.
SUV. Yeah.
And that's all Ford has been building now, right, has been conventional SUVs on the Bronco. Now we've seen a Roadster concept, right, which was the open-top skateboard version. So does that mean that we're going to get a half cab coming, which is like a little baby Bronco pickup truck? That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think that's more likely than actually seeing the Roadster because obviously with no doors, there's side impact questions, right? Back in the 60s, you could probably get away with doing a car with no doors.
It's not the doors. I mean, you can...
There's a lot of issues too, right? Structural rigidity.
I mean, the problem is not that... So, like, you can take the doors off a normal Bronco, right? The bigger problem is it has no roll bar. Right?
Well, it's only two-door too.
Sure.
And then there's, it had these really cool kind of steely wheels.
Yeah, I think it looks really cool. And I think what they've done too is if you look at like the body side profile, they've changed the quarter panel as well. I I think they've messed with maybe the wheelbase or the overhangs a little bit.
Well, this is not a real production car because it doesn't have headrests.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it doesn't have any rollover protection.
And the other cool thing, show the back there. The other cool thing is it's got that license plate bracket that folds out when you close the tailgate, so you can see the license plate. Also, that rear bumper is from the original Bronco. That's the original Bronco bumper.
Is that interesting?
And so is the front one that they kind of
cool.
kind of molded around the vehicle.
But if you look at the way that this is designed, this is already a half cab. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So like in the back here, you've got this old school Bronco tailgate, which folds down, and then the license plate extends.
And don't also stay on this for a second, Cole. So you see that Ford lettering? Does that look familiar to you?
Yeah, it's not the original one.
It's exactly the original.
Yeah.
And it's reversed on the other side, right?
Oh,
'Cause
cool.
It's stamped. So that is exactly, that Ford in the tailgate is exactly the same lettering that was in the original one.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the tailgate itself is very similar, because we owned a Bronco half cab and it looked very close to how that works.
Yeah, that mechanism to move the license plate, the designer was telling me they just bought that off of old Ford parts. So that is a exact copy of. Now this Bronco Roadster does not have any of the features that like the regular Bronco has. So no lockers, no turn assist. Those little buttons on the dash.
Doesn't have any of them?
Doesn't have any of them. None of that. It's just a basic 4x4.
So that is a half cab. So they've done it. It's pretty close to what a half cab would be. You just
Except
need
the half
a little,
cab would have a roof.
Yeah, it would have a little top to it.
Yeah.
But very cool concept. I mean, I'm glad. So Jeep's been doing these concepts for a long time now at the Easter Jeep Safari, where they do crazy stuff like this. And then Ford's been sort of kind of playing with it, but theirs have been pretty mild. So it's great to see them actually committing. Oh, manual transmission as well.
Yep,
Look at that.
it had a 4-cylinder, so it was a very base version. You can see up top there above the screen, no buttons.
This is also very nerdy, but this is not a 2025 Bronco. It's an older one because it still has the gauge on the gauge cluster and it's got the small infotainment screen. So they must have started with like a 24 Bronco.
Yeah, chances, maybe they started 2 years ago working on this. Chances of them building this are probably pretty slim.
Probably zero. I think that you'd probably want something that would prevent you from being squished in any kind of rollover.
Now, if you guys are listening to this podcast or watching it, we want to thank our Patreon members. They get it first.
Well, they get it live, actually.
Actually, yeah.
So Dan right now is in the Patreon chat. He just said, hey, Dan, how's it going? So if you guys want to be part of the community, check out patreon.com/TFLcar, and people like Dan make this podcast possible. And we're in a really weird time in YouTube right now. It's actually a really bad time for a lot of car creators. Like I go on these press trips and I've been talking to a lot of content creators, and most content creators now are down 40 to 50% of revenue year over year. I mean, the views are still strong, but it's just people aren't advertising on YouTube like they once were. And I've heard a lot of different theories behind it. But Patreon is what makes this podcast especially happen. So big thank you to people like Dan for keeping us going.
So if you want to join the community, where do they go?
Patreon.com/TFLcar. Also happy to answer any questions live on the show if those do end up coming in. So, this is episode 299. We're almost to 300.
Cool. And also, we've been now publishing exclusive content. So, for instance, there were, I think I profiled 5 concept cars. There was a really cool, so the guy who started Alpina, the family who started Alpina basically sold the brand to BMW, kind of like AMG sold to Mercedes.
Sure.
And so that now they've started a secondary company that is like Alpina, customizing BMW. So I did a video on that, and you can go see that video at all TFL. I also profiled, obviously, this Bronco. I profiled the Gravity. I profiled the Valhalla. But there was another supercar there that I also profiled. If you want to see a walk around of that, you're going to have to become a Patreon.
Yep. So they're getting bonus episodes, basically,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
But we're still keeping the normal TFL videos open to
I think
everybody.
Grant said it best. He's our kind of sales guy. I think what's happening with the YouTube platform is it's turning into a more traditional TV business model. In other words, the platform doesn't pay you. The platform just holds and basically stores and then displays your videos, and then you have to find advertisers to pay for those videos. So if you don't want to see a lot of ads, then becoming a Patreon is a great way of doing that, because they also get all this stuff ad-free.
So let's go on to our headline topic of the day. So we were thinking about it at breakfast, and there's a lot of obvious low-hanging fruit. Not that we're the smartest in the world and we know everything, but it does seem like there's some very basic products or versions of products in the car space that these car companies are not making that it seems to us would be massively popular.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with, or used to have to do with fuel economy standards, CAFE standards, because a lot of these vehicles are big engine, they use a lot of gas, and in the past, because you had to meet a corporate standard, you couldn't necessarily do these things, but now with the latest rules from the Trump administration, apparently clean air is no longer a thing, so now we could put big-ass engines in things.
So the first vehicle that I think, and I'm not sure it's officially announced, but everybody knows it's going to happen, is the V8 powered Dodge Charger.
Yes, we know that.
Right, so like Dodge released a new Charger, electric only.
Yes.
I was just on the launch of the new 6-pack version, which is a twin-turbo 550 horsepower. It's a really cool car, actually. It sounds kind of like a BMW, but it's not a V8. And that community wants the sound, the character of a V8. Now, under the previous CEO administration, right, they got rid of all the V8s within Stellantis. But now with Tim Kuniskis in charge of North America, Filosa in charge of the global company, I really do think we're going to see more V8s. We've already seen it back in the Ram, and they're working hard on it on the Charger.
Well, we're going to get all kinds of V8s. I mean, we're going to get 392 Gladiator. That's already in the works. If you loved your 392 Wrangler, now there's a 392 Gladiator. I'm sure TRX is coming back. I think they've already announced that.
TRX is definitely coming back.
So that's another one. So these are obvious things that they're bringing back. I'm a little concerned, Tommy. We had this conversation, so I won't beat a dead horse. But we owned a TRX. I wouldn't buy a TRX just because I've been there, done that. So I hope they up the horsepower or do something unique, as opposed to just like taking off the shelf engines and throwing them into everything and kind of going like this. Okay, our work is done, because I think that's not that exciting.
Well,
of course, the new Charger, of course, will be exciting because now you'll have a new body style with.
Sure.
A Hellcat engine, but still, I kind of feel like been there, done that. I want to see something else.
The thing about the TRX, though, is we only really got the standard output version of that Hellcat engine. So if you look at like the Challenger, there was the 700 horsepower version, right? But then there was also the Red Eye, which was 780 or 750, and then there was the Demon, which was 850 or something. It's
which by electric car standards isn't that much.
But electric cars are kind of done, I think,
for
now.
Done. They're not done.
But my point is,
far from done, Tommy.
Why don't they put that 800 horsepower V8 in the new TRX?
Okay, I'll tell you why I don't think they're done.
Okay, that was a bold statement. I'm not saying they're done.
But this is the part I don't understand. Maybe you can explain it to me.
Are we having the debate again?
No, we're not having. I'm not going on a soapbox. I just don't understand this. If you're into, let's say, drag racing, right? Mm-hmm. Then why would you not, if that's something that you're serious and you're serious about not just drag but racing, then why wouldn't you want the fastest vehicle and the newest and the greatest technology? So what I'm hearing people saying is, I'd rather have something that's slower if it's internal combustion as opposed to faster if it's electric. And to me, somebody who loves all sorts of motorsports, that doesn't seem like the kind of thing that is what moves the needle in motorsports. What's moved technology is that racing has always been about creating new and interesting tech that eventually works its way down to the regular cars that we're driving. And so right now, electric cars, look at the latest Rivian, right? The latest Rivian quad motor is something like 1,200 horsepower. That's a truck that will blow the doors off of most Hellcats. And yet, people are like, I don't want that because I know it's quick, but it doesn't have that sound. And that's the part that's a little disconnected for me.
I have an answer to that.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's because they're boring. That's the fact of the matter. And they're easy, right? It's easy to make any Tesla go fast. There's no skill there.
These all seem good things for a race car. They're reliable, they're quick, and they win.
Well, then
you'd rather have the slower, less winning car because it's harder to engineer than the faster, easier car that's going to win. That's what you're saying.
Hell yeah, brother.
Okay.
Because it's boring. All you do is it's a switch. It's like a microwave. Whoop. There it goes. Zoom. All right. There's no drama, right? And that's why
there's no theater. I agree.
That's why Formula E doesn't work, right? It is in a lot of ways, right? It's better technology, but it's boring, right? There's a reason that dragsters aren't electric still either. On the top fuel stuff, by the way, the gas stuff is still faster, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I thought the electric stuff would have caught up by now. But like when you go to these drag strips, there's Teslas, but people don't care about them. They're fast, they win, but the gas stuff is more exciting.
I don't know. I've been seeing a lot more videos. The problem with that, I agree with you 100%. There's no theater. There's no sense of occasion. There's no chance of a piston coming through the hood and, a giant fireball. None of that is really going to happen with an electric car. And yet, some of the most popular, like if you go to Drag Times videos, are where like a Plaid is racing pick your latest Mustang. And those videos are popular, and more often than not, you're kind of rooting for the internal combustion engine car, but the Plaid is the vehicle that wins. And so, once again, is racing about theater or is it about winning? And if it's about winning, which usually racing is about at the end of the day, sure, it's about a lot of other things, then the better technology and the faster technology is the better technology.
But, I mean, if you look at like Formula One, right? Yeah. There's been cases in Formula One where the better technology, the faster technology gets banned, right?
Sure.
So like back in the day, traction control and ABS started to make their way into Formula One cars. Right. And it was better technology. But racing isn't always about what's the fastest way to get around a track, right?
Well, it is about winning.
Well, then why did they ban it?
Well,
because they were too fast. They were boring, right?
The issue with a lot of this stuff is these were driver aids that took the driver out of it. I don't think that making a car electric takes the driver out of it. It still has to do with the guy's skill or gal's skill. But if you're now talking about using launch control, then all of a sudden it's not about the driver. It's just about the computer program. But I agree with you. It's much more exciting to watch internal combustion. The other thing
one last question on that. Why hasn't Formula E worked?
I mean, it has worked. It just hasn't caught up to Formula One. I'm not saying it's still around. People are still doing it. They're still racing. It takes a long time. It took Formula One over 100 years to become the dominant motorsport in the world. And so you can't have Formula E in a matter of, let's call it 10 years, become as popular.
I mean, Formula One has been the dominant motorsport since the 50s, right?
Oh, no, pre-war. It started
pre-war, right? Yeah. So that actually happened pretty fast because it was just... I just think that especially with race cars, Dad, you're right. It's just EVs are too fast or too easy. I mean, there's just no buzz around them. It's like same thing. Why is there no interest in EV hypercars? Right? When you went to the show, there were EV hypercars.
Yeah. So this is my point. All right, you actually bring a good point. So what the hypercar world has settled upon isn't internal combustion, isn't rear wheel drive. What it has settled on, and I saw it at the Quail and I saw it at the concept lawn, is this hybrid combination of electric power and internal combustion. So what you have is kind of the best of both worlds. You have the sound and the fury and the theater of a V8, but then you also have the instant torque of an electric motor. And so even with the Valhalla, you're seeing it. Same with the Revuelto. Same thing with a lot of the hypercars or supercars, whatever you want to call them, where you have, like the i8, where you have electric motors in the front. You're seeing it with the Corvette ZR1X,
right?
And then you have a big engine in the back, and so it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. And I think that's where we're heading. And to kind of connect the dots, I think that's where Dodge has to go if they actually want to sell cars that are interesting. If you want to get my money, you got to take that Charger, get rid of the second set of doors, don't need it. Call it a Challenger again, and make it a plug-in hybrid with all-wheel drive, with front electrified, and then the rear, internally combustion engine powered. That would get my attention. Just taking an off-the-shelf Hellcat powertrain and throwing it in there. I mean, there's a reason they stopped selling those. Obviously, one of the reasons was because of CAFE standards, but the other reason was if you go to Johnson's, where we buy all of our stuff, Johnson Auto Plaza, they still had like 23s sitting on the lot for a long time. They just couldn't sell them. It was like people were bored of them.
Well,
people had been there, done that.
They were also 15 years old.
2023s.
Yeah, but the car was 15 years old
by
2023. I mean, the car came out in 08.
Okay, but right? I'm saying...
So it's only so much you can...
They hadn't done anything to it, and they were sitting there, and and these aren't... I'm not talking about the V6s. I'm talking about like jailbreaks and the cool stuff, right?
I mean, I think that also they were selling, for a while there, even with the EVs, they were selling more of the discontinued gas ones than the electric ones. That's how few people wanted the electric ones.
I don't know.
That was I remember reading that article.
I'm not arguing that people don't want electric. I think the market has spoken, but going back to
No, I think you're right. They need to do something a little different.
It's like old shoes are comfortable, but they stink.
But keep in mind they are doing things that are different, right? Like the new gas ones, standard all-wheel drive, right? You could never get an all-wheel drive Charger or Challenger with the big
with
V8.
the six-pack.
Right. Well,
those are all-wheel drive, the six-pack?
Yeah, they're standard all-wheel drive. Yeah, so they are pushing the bounds a little bit.
Good.
But,
good job.
So moving beyond that, speaking of V8s, so I was at the announcement where the CEO of Jeep went ahead and said that all the news articles is that he confirmed the Gladiator. Just to be pedantic about it, I grilled him on that. He didn't officially confirm a V8 Gladiator, right?
Right.
The official statement from Jeep is that the V8 392 engine will continue in the Wrangler and will expand to other products.
The internet has confirmed it.
The internet has decided.
Confirmed it. The internet
and I
has
think
decided.
that you're right. I'm being a little twat here, but the product that I just can't help think would be such a big seller, right? Is Jeep's putting all this emphasis on the 392, and I get that they can charge huge money for it, but I really strongly believe if they put the standard 5.7 Hemi into the Wrangler, and then priced it at 55 grand, maybe 60, but ideally 50 to 55, that would be such a big seller. Because people don't necessarily care about that 470 horsepower. I think they just want the sound and the experience that a V8 gives you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't give you anything, right? You might as well have the 2-liter.
For off-roading. I mean, it accelerates quickly, don't get me wrong. That's very cool.
But for off-roading, it just actually, it's actually worse off-road because it's heavier.
Yeah.
So you'd be better off with a little turbo if you really wanted to maximize your off-road performance, but you don't have that cool V8 burble, which, probably you can't hear anyway with all the side-by-sides because they have that interesting 4-cylinder. I'm going to say
wheeze.
Flatulence.
Yeah, wheeze.
Yeah, because they're super loud and they're not in a great way.
So I do think that a 5.7 Wrangler, massively popular if they priced it correctly. And not that I know a lot about this world, but I would imagine it wouldn't be that expensive to develop. Because if they've already gone through the certification of getting a 6.4, getting that to fit, I'm pretty sure the 5.7 is a very similar sized engine block. I don't understand why that couldn't also fit underneath that engine bay. And it's less heat, it's less power, it's less strain on the drivetrain.
I mean, and here's the other problem with the strategy. So everybody wants a Hemi, right? Hemi this, Hemi that. But the problem is the Hemi is less fuel efficient, less powerful, less, I think in some ways even reliable than the very modern straight six that they're putting into a lot of their cars and trucks. So our customers who, you can take that Hemi off my, cold dead hands are actually going to put down their hard-earned money to buy a powertrain that is worse than the one that they can buy that's sitting next to them.
Well, you can't get the inline six in the Wrangler.
I'm talking about like in the
Rams?
Ram 1500.
I mean, I don't think the word's not out yet about reliability. That engine's too new. The Hurricane just came out.
But it's definitely less powerful. It's definitely less fuel efficient.
Yeah, but it's like the Ford thing, right? You can make every argument you want about the EcoBoost versus the Coyote.
Car doesn't sell that much. The EcoBoost outsells it by like three. It's like 25%. I think last time I checked, or less than 25%. So the EcoBoost outsells it 4 to 1.
Is that because people don't want the Coyote, or is that because they can't build enough of them they've been?
No, they can build enough. I think it's because the dealers order the EcoBoost.
But with Cafe, has Ford been pushing the Eco? I mean, there's a lot of pieces that goes into it, right?
But it's only 25% of their sales, a Coyote. And I think you can't discount the fact that it's, we're just driving our F-150 Coyote, and it is thirstier. It is less powerful than the EcoBoost. So why wouldn't you go with a more fuel-efficient, more powerful EcoBoost?
It's an emotional purchase. Right?
I get that, but emotional purchases are great when you're online, when you're...
You keep going. I'm getting a call from Mary.
All right,
make sure the car's okay.
Make sure the car's okay. Emotional purchases are great when you're, leaving comments below and you're online and you're talking about, how much you hate modern technology because, gosh darn it, my grandfather had a V8, so I want a V8. But then when you actually go to the dealer and you're faced with the choice of giving your hard-earned money to them for an engine that is not as powerful, not as fuel efficient, I don't know which of those wins. I'm sure in some cases emotion wins, Tommy, but I think in a lot of cases practicality wins. Are they okay?
Yeah, so sorry, we've got Jen and Mary are taking a road trip today in our 68 Mustang.
We're giving them a preview of a video to come.
And when you get a call from them midway through the day, that makes you definitely believe something took a...
Do we have to fire up the trailer?
No, the car's fine. They had a question about the non-existent door lock, so...
Oh, okay.
We're good to go there.
All right, good. So they made it.
So should we go to the next car?
Yeah, what's the next one?
So
can I do one? You did one.
Yeah.
All right. Mine's not a car; it's a truck.
Okay.
But I'm gonna steal some of Andre's thunder. I think that a Lexus branded Tundra would sell really well. And I know everybody's out there screaming about Blackwood and how it didn't sell and how Lincoln tried it. I'm not talking about like snazzying up and luxurifying, is that a word? Making a Tundra more luxurious. I'm just talking about branding a Tundra as a Lexus and then giving it the flavor that Lexus brings without doing silly stuff like putting wood in the bed, but making it, a little bit more luxurious, a little bit more expensive, maybe a little bit more stylish in some ways. And I think what would happen is all those guys whose wives drive RXs, right, which this is a very I'm not trying to be stereotypical here, but this is a popular car that a lot of women drive. Mm-hmm. My wife drove one for a long time. When they would go to the dealership and they would go take that RX for service, and right there would be whatever Lexus decides to call it, a pickup truck. That would be like the next thing that would set them apart in the parking lot with their neighbors, because now they would have a Lexus branded truck. And I think they would sell those like hotcakes, but I don't think that they're going to do it, because I think Japan doesn't understand our infatuation with very big, very, very big from their point of view, and very, very thirsty pickup trucks.
So Doug and his team on this car pod have talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And their argument, and I see both sides of it. Their argument with that is that truck buyers are viciously loyal to their brands.
I disagree with that. I heard that podcast. That is such a stereotypical thing that was true maybe 20 years ago. I think today your generation doesn't give a hoot whether it's a Ram or a Ford. It's a thing that like old guys like me are into. Right? My grandfather drove a Chevy, so I'm going to drive a Chevy.
No, but I think
the younger generation isn't that brand loyal.
Not so much like with what your parents drove. Not in that way. They want to drive a brand that says I'm tough, and I want to be seen as someone that does work, right? Which is that's a Ram truck, right? A Ram, that's a tough brand.
I can
GMC. Lexus is a soft brand. That's a soft L. Okay. Lexus.
All right. Let me ask
you
this
Toyota.
Question. Let me ask you this question: why are there two versions in both Ford and Chevy of the upper end of their trucks? They both have not one but two luxury versions of the F-150 and of the Silverado. So if all these guys want to drive the tough work truck, right, which all in the comments, you should review a work truck, and we did that, and crickets. No one cared.
They don't want to drive a work truck. They want to drive the tough brand. Ford is a tough brand.
But why are they buying the
Because
Platinum?
they want the luxury version of the tough truck.
Or why are they buying the High Country?
They want the luxury version of the tough truck.
No, I'm not sure that they want the tough version. I think they want something that they can show off. If you're the boss at the, let's say, at the oil field, you want to roll in there, let people know you're the boss.
But you said it yourself. Lexus is kind of a girl's truck.
No, I said RXs.
I know, but Lexus is a brand. It's just a soft brand, right? That's a squishy premium experience. You want tough. There's nothing tough about a Lexus.
I know a ton of guys who want the GX. They can't build enough of them. That is not a soft-looking vehicle. The GX is probably Lexus's biggest runaway hit vehicle right now.
Oh, that's true.
And that is as square-jawed as it gets. So I'm saying if Lexus were to actually build a Tundra pickup truck, they couldn't keep it on the lot.
Now, the Blackwood was a weird thing,
it was
right?
Very weird.
But then Lincoln did do it with Mark LT. That was an F-150 that was nicer, right? And then Cadillac did that as well, if you remember, with the Avalanche. They had a Cadillac version of the Avalanche.
The Avalanche didn't even sell, let alone the Cadillac version of the Avalanche.
The Avalanche was a big seller. People don't remember how many Avalanches are everywhere.
I mean, in the truck world, it wasn't a big seller. In car world, it was a big seller.
So I do think that I disagree with you on the Lexus because I think it's a soft brand. But weirdly, I do agree with one other version that I think would be really popular. I think a Mercedes G-Wagon truck would be popular.
Yeah, they exist. I mean, there were three of them. There were 3 6x6s running around Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
They all had Dubai plates on them.
And I don't know why that one feels better to me, because Mercedes isn't like a tough brand, but when you go to that crazy ultra premium segment, then things feel like, okay, maybe people would pay $250,000, $300,000.
Let's stay in the truck for one more while we're here. I'll give you one that would become instantly, and I will put money on this, Tommy, instantly the bestseller for that brand if they brought it. What am I talking about?
What do you got?
I'm talking about if they brought the Amarok, if Volkswagen actually, got past the silliness of the chicken tax and figured out a way to actually either build or import an Amarok, it would become the best-selling Volkswagen overnight.
Well, good news is you can buy an Amarok.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
Where?
The
How?
Ford Ranger. The new Amarok is just a Ford Ranger.
That's right.
It's
They're
a
sharing,
rebodied Ford Ranger.
but not the current one.
The current one is. The
No,
old one's long dead now. That's the current one. Is the
No. The
rebodied
Ford Ranger is the Ford Ranger. They're going to build the next generation. They're going to build together. The current one is not an Amarok.
I think the current
No,
one-
it's the next
Are you
gen.
sure?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure. No, the Amarok and the Ranger do not share components, but Ford and Volkswagen have said that they will work on the pickup truck in the next.
I think that's a Ranger, the current one. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so. Why don't you Google it then?
Okay, well, someone will.
Cole might Google it. He's going to find out. It's the next generation. They announced it, not the current one.
Is it 2025 Amarok or Ranger? Let's get to the bottom of this.
All right.
Yes, the 2025 Amarok is built on the same platform as a Ranger. They share the same underpinnings. The two have distinct designs.
All right. I was wrong.
So I think that is the current one. They revealed it last year, if I remember right.
So why doesn't Volkswagen bring in the Amarok?
Because it's not built here.
Volkswagen is selling 400,000 cars annually, something like that. I think last
Chicken
time I
tax.
checked.
Chicken tax is why they don't bring it in.
Ranger sells like 120,000 units, something like that. So if you can extrapolate from that, then imagine how well an Amarok truck would do with the Volkswagen, badge on it.
They'd have to build it here, right?
They could build it here. So remember this story? Remember the old Sprinter?
Yeah.
So, I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. The old Sprinter, to avoid the chicken tax, was built in Germany, the Sprinter van, and then they paid a company to take it apart, put it into containers, and then they shipped it to Charlotte. And then what they would do is they would build it in America, but basically they would reassemble it in America, and that's how they got by the chicken tax. It was actually cheaper to take the van apart and put it back together than to pay the chicken tax.
Oh.
And eventually that Charlotte factory started building it, not just reassembling it.
Right.
And so if they can do that with the Sprinter, Volkswagen could do that at their factory in Chattanooga. They already have a factory. I was there when they launched it. They have tons of real estate around it. They can utilize that factory instead of, I think I was reading somewhere that they were going to utilize it to build something else to get around the current tariffs. But they could do that and build the pickup truck. That's what they should be focused on.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
This is pickup truck. America is pickup trucks, Tommy. It just is.
So the next vehicle, which I think would be a runaway smash hit, would be a convertible version of the 4Runner.
They don't sell convertibles.
Well, tell that to Bronco and Wrangler.
Well, okay. So you mean like a removable top?
Like a removable top.
All right,
yeah, not like
I was thinking like
not like a cross cabriolet for it.
I was thinking of like the Evoque convertible or the Murano convertible. Not like that.
The problem we were talking about earlier is other than some pricing things, but realistically, most 4Runners you see are going to be Tier D off-roads, limiteds, right? The 4Runner and the Land Cruiser are too similar right now, and I was really hoping that to differentiate them, Toyota would have done what they had done in the 80s, where they offered the 4Runner with the removable section of top.
Yeah, I don't know why Toyota doesn't do that, and the two biggest competitors do that. It's got to have probably something to do with their, reliability.
Yeah, maybe there's safety requirements.
I think they can probably get by the safety, but anytime you take the top off, the chassis becomes less rigid, and it may hurt. With Toyota, reliability is everything. So I'm guessing I think it's an educated guess. If you were to ask me why that is, it probably has to do with something to do with like the safety of the vehicle.
Yeah, maybe. I could see that.
I don't know if it would. Look, I think Toyota people are Toyota people, and I don't think that a Toyota person is like, hey, I'm not going to buy a 4Runner because with a Wrangler or a Bronco, I can pull the top off, I can take the doors off. I don't think that that's part of their decision-making process. I think if you want a 4Runner, you're going to get a 4Runner no matter whether the top comes off or not. That's my guess, but I kind of feel like that's an educated guess. Can I give you another one?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, Toyota or Jeep or Ford, I guess, because Ford already kind of does it in the Bronco Sport. But one of those companies needs to build, or should, I shouldn't say should, that sounds like, would do well to build an off-roader that is small and kind of competes with the Jimny abroad. So a small body on frame, it's got to be, or at least if it's unibody, it's got to be seriously an off-roader. So it's got to be an off-roader first, like a Wrangler, like a Bronco, like even a 4Runner, and then The problem with the Ford Bronco Sport is what they're trying to do is they're trying to make traditional crossover more off-road worthy, and they've done a great job with it. But as a true off-roader and as somebody who's been part of that off-road community, it just doesn't fill me with desire, because at the end of the day, I know that's just a crossover that's got a lot of off-roady bits added onto it. They need to go the other way, right? Start as an off-roader and then eventually make it. And there'll be compromises, right? You're always going to have compromises, so you probably have to compromise tires and ride and maybe even fuel economy, but I think that's the vehicle I want.
I mean, I think that's the vehicle I want. I'm just not sure anyone would buy it.
Okay. I mean, the last version of that was the Samurai, and that was a runaway hit, but those were different times.
Yeah, but that was a runaway hit up to a point.
Well, the problem was it was too small.
Yeah, but
the vehicle was unsafe because it didn't have the latest safety tech, and it was very small in a world of big vehicles, and the wheelbase was too short, making for a really crappy ride off-road.
I just think that Americans really struggle with the very small. It's something that people claim they want, but then when you go to your significant other and say, hey, I want to go buy a teeny tiny two-door body-on-frame thing.
It's not going to be a first car. It's going to be a plaything, like a Wrangler.
Sure. But I mean, I love that idea. I'm just not sure.
A baby FJ.
Yeah. Right. I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the vehicle that would sell, that's a clear, obvious missed opportunity, is an off-road Blazer, right? So
yeah, that's a head scratcher.
So Ford and Jeep and now Toyota, right? They're selling hundreds of thousands of these dedicated four-wheel drive body-on-frame vehicles. And then Chevrolet has the Blazer, which is actually sold pretty well for being just kind of a normal mid-sized crossover. But, I mean, it would have been so cool if they'd just taken the Colorado platform, put an open-top removable body on it. There's a lot of Blazer fans out there. I still think that that's a name people remember and recognize, and it's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think everybody who remembers the old Blazer, which was, talking about big, right? That was, remember when the Bronco 2 was out?
Yeah.
And yet the Blazer was this big body-on-frame,
well, you're forgetting
V8-powered
they
monster.
also had the tiny Blazer.
I know.
The S10 Blazer.
Yeah.
That was also very, very popular.
I'm not forgetting because we recently had one.
Yeah, right. So I think that either big V8, but it had to be genuine off-road, and it probably should have had a removable top. That could have been a really popular market
I don't think it's too late.
No, I think it's fine.
But once again, GM has these. In some ways, GM is like a way ahead of everybody else. I can think of a couple of cars like the Volt, which was ahead of first real plug-in hybrid that was useful. They're like way ahead of the curve, and then sometimes they completely miss a curve. Another one of those examples would be they don't have a Raptor or a TRX competitor. Now with the TRX coming back, it's going to leave GM flat-footed because they have no truck to compete. I guess you could say the Hummer EV, but I don't think that people think of that in the same sentence as they do a Raptor R or a TRX.
Well, they also don't have a compact truck like Ford does. There's no Maverick competitor. I mean, there's some big obvious holes in their product portfolio.
Now, there were spy shots. This is kind of an aside, but there were spy shots of Bronco Sport Raptors running around, I believe.
Yeah, but then Ford said that was not really a thing.
But it should be a thing.
I don't think it should be
a thing.
You don't think
so?
It kind of waters down the Raptor.
A Bronco Sport Raptor?
It kind of waters down the
They've already got 4 Raptors. What's another one?
Yeah, but they're all serious, right? They're all pretty hardcore, right?
Yeah.
Bronco, F-150 Ranger. The Bronco Sport, it would be really hard to Raptorize in a.
All right. What about a few years ago? The big news was that Corvette was going to become a sub brand. That Chevy was going to create a sub brand out of Corvette. You could kind of do that. I think that's another thing you could do. You could, in fact, the GT line in Porsche is its own sub brand, and the Corvette line in Chevy could be its own sub brand. It's so powerful. So you could do other versions of Corvettes, and I think they'd all have to be sporty. I mean,
well, they were talking. I think they've scrapped this idea, but the news a couple of years ago is they were working on a electric Corvette SUV.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be an SUV. I think that's the biggest problem with the Mach-E is that they called it a Mustang. I don't think you want to use that brand and water it down into something that isn't. And I think this is Jeep's problem, right? They have watered down the DNA of the Wrangler so much with all these, the Patriot. The Compass, they just have watered it down so much.
But thank God they didn't call it the Wrangler.
Yes.
I mean,
but
they've watered down the Jeep brand,
okay,
but not the Wrangler brand.
Yeah.
mean, Wrangler is still its own thing. So what I think Chevrolet, I was thinking about Corvette, because Corvette has been a very big success in the C8 generation, right? It's kind of that American $70,000 Ferrari supercar experience, mid-engine, right? Very, very cool. Then they followed it up with the Z06, which has been hugely popular. Now the Z01, which is breaking records all over. E-Ray was kind of a flop, but Z01X seems like it's going to be a big thing. But I think what would be really cool, I don't think they would sell a lot of them, but you'd have a group of people that would be very interested, is kind of like so Porsche does a 911 called the 911T,
Yep.
which is like the enthusiast version. That's not a GT3, right? So it's not top of the spectrum, but it does have a manual transmission. It's got like the sport suspension. I think Corvette would be really cool if they also offered that, like a manual transmission mid-engine Corvette would be really, really cool. Kind of like a stripped down enthusiast version. So Chevrolet kind of tried this in the early 2000s, late 90s they had a C5 Corvette called the FRC, which was a fixed roof coupe.
Remember.
Which was kind of like a Z06 without the engine. Something like that, not that that was a huge success, but something like that with the standard C8 with the stick would be really cool.
I just think that any manufacturer out there who's building sports cars should really think hard about putting a manual back into their sports cars. With everybody like manual swapping classic Ferraris that were better or would have been better, and Lamborghinis that didn't have them would have been better with manuals. I think at some point this is a wake-up call for the manufacturers to actually stick sticks back into their sports cars. I think the next generation of Corvette should have one.
Especially when you look at, why not this generation? We're still not through C8. It's only been out for 5 years. And we're seeing a refresh.
Yeah, how long do you think it'll last? 10 years like the previous one? How long do you think they'll keep building?
Well, the previous
C8?
one was 6 years.
Was it only
It
6?
was 2014 through 2020, I think.
I thought it was longer.
No, but that was just kind of a stopgap.
You sure?
Yeah.
C7 was only 6 years? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. C6 was longer. C6 was 2005 through 2014. So that was about 10 years.
Okay. So what cars could we stick a stick in? That would do
I think Corvette would be really, really popular.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're seeing it on the hypercars, like the Gordon Murray
Yeah.
T50, that kind of category of cars. Those are getting manual transmissions. I think any kind of sporty enthusiast car, like it's a shame that Golf R is automatic only.
I think Supra, when it put a
GTI.
stick shift into the car, became much more popular.
Yes,
In fact,
they should have launched with that.
In fact, those are selling, over sticker. And speaking of cool cars, I have two other ones that I think that they would do well. Remember the was it a Celica the turbo Celica turbo
All-Track?
All-Track. I think Toyota would do well if they brought that back, or a version of that.
Well, it's kind of the GR Corolla.
That's a hot hatch. I know they did an all-track version for SEMA where they basically took but I want it to be a sports car, not a hot hatch. So I want it to be
like an 86? You want an all-wheel drive 86?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, lifted and a little bit more. I think that would be cool. The other thing that I think that Land Rover should do, and I don't know what I would call this, but I'm sorry, I know you just went and drove the Octa, which is the ultimate G-Wagon competitor. One could say it's the ultimate Defender off-roader. The Defender just doesn't say off-roader to me. It says this is a very much an on-road, showing off to your friends in the parking lot. But I think Defender needs to create, and I would have said they had the whole world to themselves until the Grenadier came along, but now they need to create an Ineos Grenadier competitor. Like they need to create what the Defender used to be, which is a dedicated off-roader. I think that they would do really well with that, and not a Defender and not a Defender Octa. Because I think with the Octa, they're going after the G-Wagon. And G-Wagon needs to create a baby G-Wagon.
The problem is, though, I was talking to
They might want to.
the head of Defender brand.
Yeah.
And I just like what the data is showing them is like people say they want an old school Defender, right? And then they drive one, and they don't want one because there's a lot of compromises that come with that basic off-road focused suspension architecture that someone who's spending $60,000, $70,000, even $50,000 on a car doesn't want to deal with, right? So I think that it's
But
a
yeah,
good idea
but you
in
have to-
theory, but would anyone actually buy one?
Well, people do it in the G-Wagon. That thing is full of compromises. Have you tried to close the door without slamming it? I mean, I was just sitting at a restaurant, and this woman came up in a G-Wagon, and like 3 of her kids rolled out of it, and 2 of the kids closed the back door, and both back doors weren't closed. They just went boop, because you got to really just, you know what I mean? You got to, and so that's already a compromise. The straight up windshield is a compromise. The lack of space is a compromise. The whole thing's just a giant compromise, and yet people are, falling over themselves to throw money at Mercedes to get a G-Wagon.
Well, that's why they went with the Octa, right?
But that's not because the Octa.
The Octa goes right up against the G-Wagon.
It's all about performance. It's not the core, I believe, and the value in the G-Wagon is its kind of deep rootedness, its deep DNA to off-roading, and the Octa doesn't have that. The Octa is just a fancy Defender, and the Defender is just a very fancy on-roader that's styled to look like an off-roader, in my mind at least.
Well, but that Octa is incredible off-road.
Okay.
So it's got 35-inch tall tires. It's got like 12 inches of ground clearance.
And a V8.
It's got, but even V8 aside, it's got locking center and rear differential, right? I mean, it's got everything you need. It's a freaking awesome off-road.
Doesn't have a locking front.
Doesn't need a locking front with that four-wheel drive
G-Wagon
system.
doesn't need it, but it has it.
Yeah, but I would argue that you would go anywhere in an Octa, you could go in a G-Wagon.
Here's what I keep seeing over and over and over again, and I think this is a good illustration of that. I see engineers and marketing people and product managers making the same argument that you're making, right? This vehicle doesn't need this because 99% of our customers don't know what it is or won't use it or don't care about it. And yet, what people care about is the image of the vehicle. And every time you take something from that vehicle that makes it whatever the DNA of that thing is, you're making it less of the thing that makes it attractive for people to buy. And if you can distill the thing that makes it so cool and keep it, then that thing becomes desirable. If you start pulling stuff out of it, no matter how much more stuff you put into it, it's not going to be as desirable. And I would be willing to bet, Tommy, that the Octa is not going to sell nearly as well as the G-Wagon.
No, it won't. You're right. But it is better off-road.
Than a G-Wagon?
Yeah. If you take a stock G-Wagon...
Hey, I'll put it out there, Land Rover, Mercedes, please, give us a G-Wagon, the off-roady one, give us an Octa, and we'll find out.
So biggest tire you can get on a G-Wagon.
Yes.
It's like a 32.
Yes.
Octa's 35s from the factory with an off-road tire. Try finding an off-road tire on a Mercedes.
They do it, don't they?
That
do
professional you
yeah.
had, sort of an all-terrain. That Octa has KO3s, right? That's a proper off-road tire. It's got more ground clearance. It's got more suspension articulation. It doesn't have a front locker, but it does have a center and a rear locker. It's got more water fording than a Bronco Everglades. Like that thing can go off-road. There's no doubt. Will anyone take it off-road? No, absolutely not. But it has what it needs. And I think
I'm not arguing about how well the Defender has done. I think they made the right move by toning it down, by taking what was a tractor and making it into a much more usable, much more refined, much more larger bandwidth car. But I think because they did that, then it allowed Ineos with the Grenadier to come in and take that Defender space, and now Land Rover has nothing in that space. And I don't think the Octa is in that space because how much does it cost?
$150,000.
Right, so you're not in that space.
Or $170,000.
A Grenadier, ours is $82,000.
Yeah,
so
but
it's half the price.
I would love to know if those Grenadiers are still selling.
I heard they're not selling as much.
Yeah, I think that
heard the first kind of everybody who wanted one has gotten one, and now you can go to the auctions. And I've heard, and this is, I haven't done any research. I just heard that you could buy one at an auction for like $60K. So they're down like $30K from when we bought it, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, which is doing better than I thought compared to a lot of Land Rovers. It's actually pretty good residuals.
But G-Wagons don't depreciate.
They don't depreciate. So I want to go to the chat right now on Patreon. So we've got some people tuned in, giving us questions. Jonathan asks, "Hey guys, do you think sedans, coupes, and wagons will ever come back, like getting seriously popular again, or are we stuck in this crossover SUV purgatory forever?" No, I don't think they're ever coming back. And that's the reality of it is, unless you're an enthusiast, and this is going to sound sacrilegious, but unless you're an enthusiast, I strongly believe an SUV is just a better shape for most people. It's easier to get in and out of, you sit taller, you've got more ground clearance for running over pebbles and curbs and snow and ice. They usually have all-wheel drive. They are typically bigger at holding things than sedans. I mean, I know there's an argument that, a wagon's better to drive for sure. But for a typical person, someone like my mom or my wife, right, who isn't into cars, they just want a vehicle to drive around, an SUV is just a better form factor.
Yeah, I would never say never because every generation wants its own thing. Like you're not on Facebook, right? You're on whatever, Snapchat. And so the crossover is going to be identified with the older generation. So the younger generation is going to be like, I don't want what my mom drove. I don't want what my dad drove. I want something different. Will that be a sedan? I don't know. But I think we've seen peak SUV crossover. I'm guessing we're probably ready for something else because I am certainly bored of crossovers, especially mid-size crossovers. Oh my gosh, they're all the same. Sometimes this is my job. Sometimes, not at night, but even in the daytime, I see like a typical crossover, mid-size crossover from the back, and I don't know what the hell it is because it looks like every other one.
Well, yeah, I'm not for SUVs for the record, unless they're off-roady. I think that they are less fun to drive. They can be less fuel efficient. There's problems associated with SUVs 100%. But I just think of like
great question, by the way.
Yeah, great question. I just think of like the typical normal person, right? It's just better, right? They're big. They hold stuff. They feel safer. They can go through the snow. They can get to the cool campsites.
I think one of the reasons that like Land Rover has done so well is I was just driving a Disco 5.
Mm-hmm.
They're big cars.
Sure.
These are big cars, right? These are maybe not as big as Tahoe or Suburban, but they are big and roomy. And I think that we may be seeing more of that coming up in the crossover / suburban world. I kind of feel like with the electric vehicles, these cars have gotten smaller because of efficiency, but I think like Rivian would have done better had they gotten, made that R1S like 2 sizes bigger than that they did.
I think, yeah, a pretty big car already though, the R1S. You don't think it's big enough?
Yeah, I think the Defender is much bigger, the 130. I think
Yeah.
if you were to park a 130 next to an R1S, the 130 would dwarf an R1S. Anyway, keep going. What's your next
That
question?
130 is ugly.
It's very big-butted.
Jonathan also says on the chat, big agree and more manual in sports cars. Don't care if it's slower. It's all about the physical engagement with the machine.
Yeah, you want to become part of the machine, and we have now lived through a time where, because of Tesla mainly, everything has become screen-oriented. These are, what do they call that when the car is?
God, the software-defined vehicle.
Software-defined vehicle. I am so tired of the software-defined vehicle. I was thinking about this. The latest Bugatti has this incredible analog speedometer.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like BMW, especially because I was with BMW on their Pebble Beach program, I think they would do well if they could actually build, like, remember when they had the 50? Was it the 502? What was it? A little sports car, the little convertible.
Z8?
No, going back like into the 50s.
Oh, like 504?
Was there 504?
405, 504?
Yeah, something of that size, but with all analog controls and maybe one tiny screen somewhere. I think a manufacturer would do really well if they got back into the button world.
What was that thing called? I think you're right, because what we're seeing is
sliders.
507.
507, okay.
Now that everything has screens in it, like it used to be like 15 years ago, the premium manufacturers would put screens in cars, right, to make them feel more premium and nicer than the standard cars that were all mechanical. But now that every single Hyundai and Kia and Ford and Chevy has screens in it, now they got to go do something else, which is the opposite of that. Which is almost watch-like mechanics.
Yeah, because buttons are more expensive.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, buttons are a lot more expensive.
So I think people inherently understand that buttons are more expensive, though they're more premium.
But I think back then, like I think the first car I ever saw that had a digital instrument cluster was a Range Rover, the L322.
I remember
and that
yeah.
blew my mind. It was so cool. And back in those days,
but
the
it still had
screens,
real buttons.
Yeah, but the screen was expensive and exciting, right? That was like, ooh, this was the iPad era, right? But now that, like I said, that screens are so cheap, they're cheaper than physical controls and buttons and dials and knobs. I really hope that we start to see, especially in the premium segment, a reversal back to kind of this analog experience.
Yeah, so whatever auto manufacturer comes back with, it could be a premium analog car, will do really well. The problem is, people probably are thinking, is that you can go buy those cars, right? Those are classic cars. If you want a premium basic sports car, go get yourself a Porsche 944. Those things are $10,000 to $15,000 all day long. The problem with doing that is that they're also 30, 40 years old, and people really want the security of a warranty and of a new car. And so while you may crave the analog features of an older car, the problem with the older cars is they're not as safe, they're certainly not as reliable, and they certainly don't have that new car smell. And so if you could take that kind of old school and bring it into a modern car, or at least doesn't have to be a recreation of what I used to drive, but at least interpret that in a modern car, I think you would do really well.
I think you're right. Yeah, 100%. All right, everybody. Well, that was an hour of podcasting done already.
I want to thank our Patreons.
Yeah, next time we'll give you more heads up so you can tune in for sure.
But we're always running around, doing videos, so it's kind of hard because we have, 8 channels we need to feed, and so it's kind of hard to plan this, or maybe we just need to get better at it, Tommy.
Yeah, I think we just gotta get the planning down.
Can I throw in some thank yous just very quickly?
Sure.
I want to thank BMW for taking me to Pebble Beach.
Nice.
I've been doing this for 15 years now, and that was my first invite I got, so it meant a lot to me. The team was incredible. They put us up in an incredible hotel, and I've got to check something off of my bucket list, so I'm very grateful for that. There's some more questions pouring in, by the way.
Jonathan just agrees with you that crossovers are just so samey. Good but boring. Let's hope Roman is right, and some other platforms will catch on in the future. Yeah, I would love that, because I am also getting bored of reviewing the same old bubbles.
Yeah. In fact, I don't think people are actually watching those reviews anymore. We look at our reviews and we look at our numbers, and I don't know if it's because of what's happening on YouTube or because of what's happening with people's tastes, but those reviews just aren't doing very well.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. As always, Tommy, where should they go if they want to watch all of our videos?
Yeah, alltfl.com is the place to be. Big thank you to everyone on Patreon who tuned in live.
And if you want to help support us?
Patreon.com/TFLcar.